Welcome again. In our server side, we have implemented JWT, which have basically two functionalities. One, it will check the JWT token attached with the request and verify that token. And second, to generate a new token on the basis of authentication. If a user gets authenticated with our system using passport local policy or whatever the way out, or passport Facebook policy, whatever the mechanism is, with that after authentication we generate a token. So generating a token and verifying the token, these were the two major work that was done on our server side. There is some configuration required on the client side also. Today we will see it, how we can handle JWT on the client side, that means in our Angular application. Let's start. So first of all, we need a service. So we will create a service just like auth.service.es, as we have created our data service. So we can create an auth service also. In an auth service, what we need to implement? We need to implement 4-5 functions. We will see one by one. First of all, for the sign up function, what we have to do, we have to call sign up function, or log our sign up, or whatever the name we have provided into our REST API, with the post and the user information which we have, and provided the header information. Whenever the user will register, that header needs no authorization or something like this. So by default, the header is a simple header, which appends simply that it is the variable which is we are sending is a JSON type. That is the only header. So we sent the header information to this post method, and we are converting the response into JSON and providing the return wherever we need into our component. So this is our first function in the auth service, that is register user. It has nothing to do with your JWT or any other password mechanism. It is a simple creation of a user for authenticating user. This is the second mechanism in which we are sending a login request. We are sending a login request to our login route with post and username and password, which has been created by using this register. So we are appending some headers with it. What sort of header we are appending? We are adding a simple JSON information that this username and password will be in JSON way out. We can create an object of these two variables, and we can send that object also, just like in this case we are sending user, and in this we have a user.username and user.password, whatever the mechanism you have. So this is the second method which we need to implement, that is basically a login request to the server. Against this request, what we will receive, alternatively the token. So when we will send the login request, the server will send us a token. So we need to store that token into our local storage. To store the token into our local storage, we need the function local storage.setItem, and we are saving the token, and we are stringifying the user information which is sent by the server. So we have saved our token into our local storage, and we have defined the variable for which we have assigned this token to our auth service. So hopefully it will be clear that whenever the server will request for the login, the server will respond with the token. If the request is successful, the token will be received, and that token will need to be saved into our local memory. And against that, if we have a logout request, against that we will remove the token from our local storage. So this will be a simple implementation. Let's see our components, how those will be completed. For the login component, what we will do, we will create a login form with username and password. Both will be two-way data binding. Will be having two-way data binding, ng model, username and password. Whenever the user will click on login, it will call a method on login submit. We will go to on login submit. In this on login submit, what we have performed, we have created a user with the username and password, and we are passing this user to authenticate user function which we have created in our service. So service will send this information to our REST API, and REST API will respond back with us. And for example, the server has responded with the data, so we have to do this here. So first we will see how this data will be received. For example, we are sending this data to our console. So we can see here in the console that the server has provided us success true token with the token information, and email and ID and username and username, this information as a user. So server has sent us two information. One is the success with JWT token, and second is with our user information. To handle this, what we have to do, we have to call, we have received this data into this, and if the data dot success is true, that means we are checking if the login request is true, then what we are doing, this dot auth service dot store user data, which the function which we have created, the function which we have created in this layout, store data, which is storing the token into our local storage. So we are calling that method and saying and displaying a success message to our end user, and we are redirecting it to the dashboard. This .router.navigate is the way out with which we can navigate to some different component, and that component is a dashboard. So the view will be navigated to dashboard after clicking this, and if there is an error, there is no success, it will be a danger alert danger class with data message which will be sent, which would have been sent from our server, that will be displayed to the user, and the user will be navigated back to the login screen. So we have implemented our component which will take the username and password from the user and send it to the authenticated user, and on the response of the server we will decide either we will save the token information or we will basically display an error message. This is our login way out. And on successful, it will redirect us to basically your dashboard, and the local storage will save the information about ID and the user. On logout, what we will do, on logout we will call on logout click function, and on this logout.click function, what we will do, we will basically all logout method, we are calling the logout method which will clear our basically local storage. And from the next request we don't have any token to attach, so in this way our next request needs to be re-authenticated with our server, so that user will be logged out from the system. This is a simple mechanism. Because it is a statelessness, so server will not maintain any sessions that this user was logged in, so we don't need to send any information to the server that the user is authentic or not, or we need to log out from the session or etc. So in JWT we don't need to send any information to the server that that this person is being logging out, but we just destroy his local storage information. And we have seen the sign up mechanism, we have seen this login mechanism, we have saved that token into our memory. Now what we will do, we will attach the token with every subsequent request we will send to the server. So after next, when we send the request to the server, for example we want to call a URL that is basically our path is profile, and we need to attach the header information and attach our authorization with this header. So what we are doing, we are creating a header, and then this dot load token. In this load token, what we are retrieving that token which we have saved into our local storage. We retrieve that token, and that token will be appended with that authorization. And then we have also declared that the information will be in JSON format, and we are sending this request. Against this request, the server will be decode this and will check the token. If the token is right, it will respond back with the resource to us, else there will be an error. So this is the way out with which we will request onward for any route with this authorization. So in our component, we just need this authorization service and get profile, and we need to subscribe to this. If there is no error, we will show the profile. If there is an error, we will return the false, and we will show the error message accordingly. So this is the way out with which we can implement JWT in our Angular application. Hopefully the concept will be clear. In our next lecture, this is basically we are displaying the user, and if the user has been successful, login has been successful, we will display this, else this, and so on. So in this lecture we have seen basically three major concepts. One was the reactive programming, how we can implement observable into our application and how those observables are being used. The second concept is the designing of UI. We have seen Angular material as well as Bootstrap, Angular Bootstrap, uh, that how they can be added into our application and how they can be used. The third point which we have discussed today is implementing the JWT on our client side. We have already seen the server side solution for JWT and Passport. So this is all from the client side. We have basically studied all the concepts that are part of the Angular. In our next lecture, we will not study any concept. Instead, we will go through our whole client-side application and see how it is interacting with our REST API. So our next lecture will be a complete mean stack application, which contains a server-side solution, which contains a client-side solution, which will having JWT access, which will having authorization system, which will having reactive programming, the observable system, which will having all the concept which we have studied so far. So the lecture 25 will be our complete main stack application. Till then, thank you very much.